at 6:01 p.m. And let's salute our flag. Anita, will you lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, at the direction of the board, I asked Bob to have the ESD select our 5th board member. And the ESD did so. They have given us a letter in the matter of appointing, signed by all the board members. And they have informed us that they have selected Keith Hare for that position.
I'll make a move that we accept their letter and their appointment.
We'll see. It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So I guess at this time, are you ready to swear Mr. Terry in?
All right. Keith, raise your right hand. I, Keith Terry,
I, Keith Terry,
do hereby solemnly swear
hereby swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Washington, and will faithfully discharge the duties of director Discharge of director of the Mill School District in Skamania County, State of Washington, to the best of my ability. All right. That is it.
Thank you.
So I will.
No, we're saying down there.
At this point, I hope we can fulfill our duties to elect the chair and vice chair. I am going to ask whether there are any nominations for the role of chair and president to serve during the ensuing year.
I will. Harry.
Nominate.
Just 2 nominations. Are there any further nominations? Yeah. You want to speak first or second? Not saying.
Are we giving little speeches?
I don't know.
Well, I think that they don't need to speak, didn't prepare anything, but I'm speaking to the board, but of course, because the public's in front of me, I'm speaking to you too. But as far as the board goes, I think that being the chair is an opportunity that we all should aspire to if we feel that it's something that we would enjoy doing. One of the responsibilities of chair is to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. Some of us are very loud. Some of us are very outspoken. Some of us master the art of listening. And we, as a board, need to be sure that we are all heard. And so I would look forward to ensuring that everyone has an opportunity to speak. And if they choose to do so, they may choose not to, depending on the subject or whatever. So I think that that's real important, that we all are able to interact. And I noticed the tables today are a little more of a curve. And I think that's important because to me, I like to look at people when I speak. That's kind of the way I was taught. I actually had to take a speech class in college. And so I think that that's real important to make eye contact and so that others know that you're listening as well as when you're speaking. The other thing that I think is important, and Eric has done a great job of being chair. He's been chair for what, 5 years? And I think that I give him a lot of credit for that. But I do think that it's a position that everyone should have an opportunity to fill if they so desire. And I do think sometimes when someone is in a position for a long period of time, there is an opportunity for a lot of misperceptions to take place. And so because I would enjoy the position, I would look forward to it. I might go, oops, once in a while. But I think it's good to have another board member take that position, and I would be very happy to do that on behalf of the board.
Thank you. I think that was incredibly well said. Thank you. There isn't a lot that I would disagree with on what you said about the roles. I believe that there are some things that I can offer in the role of chair that are different than what you can offer. And I value those things. At times, I don't want to be the chair because it's not always, sometimes it means you're the face of a position that is looked at critically and taken wrong. And you do, I would hope that all of us do the right thing because of who we are and not because of what anybody else says. So before I ask, it's a roll call vote. Before I ask for the vote, does anybody else have anything they would like to say?
I'd like to ask, when we were at what's called EPA meeting,
The ESD.
you said something about we're all divided and against each other and stuff.
I didn't say that the board was divided.
I took it as,
I'm sorry, it's not, part of the role of the chair is to communicate clearly. I think we've had some division in our meetings, but people have been coming to the meetings and saying and doing in comments that don't have to do with the running of our school and in doing what's best for our kids.
I just want to make it clear. When I vote, I voted for Anita and then Wendy. And when I vote, I don't want to cause division. I just want to vote on conscience.
And that's
And
exactly
I
what
don't want to cause division.
that's exactly what you should do. I would be incredibly disappointed if any of us are voting for what we think is right. So I really appreciate that, Bill.
I'd like to speak to the position. I'll speak up. I'd like to speak to the position of chair. And I think that, I think it's important to lead the meeting, yes, but, give everyone the opportunity to, point out their views. I think that person needs to come prepared, having, studied all the material we get ahead of time. I think that Eric's done a really good job the time he's been here, and that's why I nominated.
You're putting me on a real position of having to vote on something you're just brought into. And if you want to say something.
Sure. I gotta hand it to you and Bob for taking the school from what it was to where it is now. There's no denying you guys have all. So from my perspective, thank you. You've done a really good job. Personally, I think it's, I've been on several boards And I don't think it's correct that somebody sits in the chair for 5 years. I've seen, this not go to what I've seen. Complacent. That's what I see. And I've talked to quite a few people here, and maybe not everybody, but what I'm seeing is, okay, let's put it this way. This board is elected by the people of the town. You are here to represent the people in this town. That's if you have 10, 5, 2, 1 person that has an issue, you need to listen to them. You need to understand what that person is telling you, what they're trying to convey. And that's where I'm seeing the complaint. I'm not seeing the concern. All I hear is that there's a group of people that are pissed off, and well, it's a small group. Wait a minute. You're supposed to represent that small group as well as the big group. You're supposed to represent everyone, not just who you want to represent. That's else out there.
All had a chance to speak. So this is a roll call vote. Start with you, Bill,
I vote for Anita.
Anita,
I'll vote for anything.
I'll vote for Eric.
I'll vote for it. Where does that put me? I'm gonna vote for it.
Anita, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Um,
No need to trade places.
Are you good? All right, well, let's do this. There you go.
So I would like to thank the board and again, thank Eric. And also to let you guys know that you won't hurt my feelings if you say something because I did something wrong. I know. Keith, you've had some Robert's Rules of Orders experience as well as Eric and I. And so, as you all know, I say oops pretty well, so. And we thank you again. I look forward to it. I appreciate your comments, Keith, and everyone's comments. One of the things that I was taught, and again, I'll probably goof up, but that we should have empathy and understanding instead of being judgmental. We do have to do a lot of evaluation in our life about different things, including how we vote. But we should not be judgmental. We should understand and have empathy. Thank you very much. And I think that's kind of what you said, Keith. All right, let's move forward. So if the board would please, oh, yes. See, already. So we will open the floor for nominations for the position of vice chair. It says president on our agenda. In the law, it says chair/president. So do we have any nominations for vice chair, vice president?
I'd like to nominate Bill.
So Bill's been nominated. Do we have any other nominations? Okay, Eric. Do we have any other nominations? Could make it a full house. All right. So with no objection, we'll close nominations. Is there any discussion? Would you like to say something, Bill or Eric?
I'll gladly try to do it if I got elected. I have a lot to learn and I'll do my best. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Do you have anything to say, Eric?
I would support it. Of the school, what's best for the school.
Have anything to say? Keith? Okay, so it is a roll call vote. And so we'll We'll go down. I guess I could write my little check marks here. So let's start with Diane and Bill
Bill,
and Eric.
Um. Yes, sir. I'm over here.
And Keith. And Anita, and I will vote for Bill. So Bill, congratulations that you have received the majority vote and you are now the vice chair. Thank you everyone very much. I look forward to some very wonderful meetings with all of us working together. And Bill, I'm sure if I'm not able to attend a meeting, you'll do great.
okay.
You are the vice chair. I will help you in any way I can.
And actually, I think our past shows that we all help each other through the whole meeting. There really isn't, this isn't the type of board where there's a lot of strict things that happen. And so far, we haven't had any serious situations. So our next obligation is to review the agenda to make sure that there isn't anything left off. We usually have down there somewhere, something that says to the order of new business or for the good of the order. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add to the agenda?
That's 11.
We could put it down there just before public comment. After review of
It's
the
on the
policies.
agenda.
Already on there.
Well, see, there you go. Where does it say that? New board business. I love it.
I'd like to bring up the,
Pardon?
I'd like to bring up who takes the minutes.
Who takes the minutes? Okay, well, that is a new board item, so let's make sure that that is something underneath new business. And I have a very small legislative report that we'll put under there unless you add that, Bob, by any chance.
In reports.
So there'll be a legislative report under there, and then if there's any other comments or questions that the board has that would like to discuss with the board or bring up, we can do it underneath that, which is under new board business. Anything else? Okay, we entertain a motion to accept the agenda as modified. Also. Been moved and seconded to accept the agenda as modified. All in favor, say aye.
Alright.
Okay. So the next item on our agenda for us is the review of the minutes. Now, I didn't see, the minutes weren't on in the packet I got online. Do you have copies for them? And I don't,
They were in that copy of, if you came to the school up copy. They're in there.
there's usually a file here, so have a new process?
No. No, they were in the Google Drive folder and there's
Yeah.
a copy of the February 12th minutes.
No, I'm sorry, there wasn't a folder in front of my chair. No folder in front of my chair. I'm really sorry, but
I don't think she got it. Over.
You just want a copy of the minutes here.
I just gave it.
She
Did-
gave me a copy of the minutes and we'll make sure I get everything else as we go online.
Keith, did you come and pick up your board packet before today?
Right.
Ah. Well, then that folder, that set of documents was actually Anita's. Can you pass those down?
That's just fine, Keith, don't worry about it,
Yep.
I'll share with Bill.
I
No.
read it, so.
Well, when we get to the other
You
stuff,
just want the
I'll
minutes
just
or-
share.
No.
Well, she needs all the documents.
Okay, well, I went through, marked stuff, so I kind of want this.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I only got one paper there I have for. What do you have? Everything else. I can-
There's 5 sets of board documents and there's 5 of you. Who else came and picked up their documents early?
Yeah, I picked those up last Friday.
Yeah, he picked up some, but then
Okay,
everybody got. You got over here, oh, you mean,
That folder I just handed you, I picked up Friday.
Oh, no.
well, then that's
Okay.
not, yeah. Then there should be one. I picked up mine this morning, that's, I'm not with.
no,
Good.
I,
That's why I assumed this was mine.
It is.
So-
yeah. That's yours. That's what I was trying to, that's what I was trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out if there was another set of them there on your table. No, I think that they were here on this table and you.
Yeah. that's
All
why
right,
I
you
started
have the
with
minutes.
stuff.
You don't have a deal.
In my yellow folder back to Bob, I picked up my stuff, and I read it. I read it already.
You want the yellow.
The folder.
I tell you, we are the most organized group ever. And the one time I decided not to print off the internet. So does anyone have any comments, corrections, or additions to the minutes? I have one thing I'd like to say and Jennifer here. You know, it's really hard when we have minutes and we're trying to describe public comment. And so we usually say so-and-so commented. This says that you suggested standardized applicant questions for board interview process. Is that okay with you? Then I won't make a suggestion of a change. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on the minutes as presented to us? Okay. About, so Eric, we discuss each of these and then vote of them as a single unit. Is that correct?
That's the policy that previous boards have adopted, and I feel like, it would be worth conversation if people want to vote individually, but that's what we're supposed to do historically.
Let's just follow protocol that we've been going on. And so now it's a review of the AP vouchers. And you must be in here somewhere. Diane, I bet you might have a question or a comment.
You're suggesting that I should?
No, but you've got the good eye for
Oh,
finance.
no, the basic. You know, really what I went through and looked at is that we're. Much percentage into the school year and the expenses look like they're. Either below or at that level. And I didn't find anything. Questionable.
Oh, thank you. I have one quick question, Bob. KTC, that is the name of our, the acronym for our attorney, is that correct?
That's Carr, Tuttle and Campbell Law Firm, yes.
Okay. So does anyone have any questions on the vouchers presented to us tonight? How about a review of payroll?
That's not payroll. Anita,
Is the signature
That is-
document in here?
that is,
That's the supplemental contract. Right?
Okay, so it's the signature document that what right over here?
Three documents. Somewhere in the list.
These are. This is a AP signature document, not a payroll.
Were you can
I can print and there we go.
We got it, got it.
Yeah.
So before us, if you did not see it on the web and review it, we have payroll before us in the amount of $108,316.46. Does anybody have any questions about payroll or? Okay, no questions? Are there any questions about the consent agenda? Anything on the consent agenda? Then the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve items A through C on the consent agenda. One in favor, say aye, please. Aye. Anyone not? Say nay. Okay, thank you very much. So on the payroll, does everyone sign this one?
Yes.
I'll start down. Kate, if you come back with this one. Time for public comment.
Anita, excuse me. So there's all of the AP approval
All
documents,
needs
those
to
all
sign
need,
Right this very minute. Okay,
well, we just need to make sure that they're signed before we leave.
we normally sign them while the public's commenting. Is that what we normally do? I don't like to do that.
I think we've usually done it then after public comment because we don't want to be.
I don't want to, be doing
Pay
it while
attention.
the public. Yeah,
Pay
that's
attention to
exactly
public.
right. So
Whatever.
we'll finish those and let's have public comment.
I would just like to say thank you to those people who wrote letters to ESD supporting the candidate of their choice. Sticking with the qualifications of the candidates rather than bashing and perpetuating the spread of disinformation.
Is there anyone else?
Me, but I'm gonna stand back here, so I don't feel like I wanna look at people. So, I am agreeing with Jennifer, and these are the written statements that were sent in to ESD, their public comments. And I read those, and, I was very disheartened by them. So bear with me a moment. Years ago, I went to a church in Camas for 20 years. As often happens in churches, there's a terrible church split. People on this side, people on this side, and they were horrible to one another. And I was getting all of my information from a very trusted friend. And she was telling me how it was, and I was incensed at this pastor. And all that I was being told was happening. So at a big public meeting, I had a microphone, and I gave them what for. And then found out later I was wrong. And I was horrified and embarrassed and ashamed. And I called him and I asked for his forgiveness. And I apologized. And he was so gracious. And he said, I knew you didn't know the truth. So that was 25 years ago. And I have sworn that since then, that I know there are two sides to every story. And if I stand and I make a comment or I speak out on things, which I do quite frequently, I have done my homework. And I am well aware of what the truth of the matter is. And I'm sad that the people, many, not all, but many, who wrote these statements haven't learned that lesson. And they seem to have gotten information that was not accurate. And they made very scathing comments and remarks about somebody else who was innocent of those things. And so I think it all goes back to an online conversation that happened on the, you must be something Mill A Facebook page last fall during the campaign, where Katie Libke, who I really believe as a community shot ourselves in the foot. And she had so much to offer our students to help them excel. But she had made a comment in her campaign at the forum that if the state were to require things taught in the schools that parents and community were not in support of, she said there are other funding options. That's what she said. But somehow, I'm not sure how, that got misconstrued. I have copies of all of these here. That she and a group of zealots, that term was used, want to take over the school board and they want to shut down the school. They want to board up the windows, that was said. They want to put newspapers on the windows and get us away from public, from state funding, and they want to close our school. Well, that's crap. That's not true at all. And I have comments from her on that Facebook thread where she says, that is not what I said. This is what I said. And then they again promote that this is what she's saying. And she again says, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I said. And so at that point where she has proven that what was being said about her falsely was not true, well, then that becomes slander. And when it's written, it's libel and it's defamation. And that's a gross misdemeanor. And I have all those documents and those RCWs here. And when it has been said that those in that small minority group of zealots that want to take over our school, blah, blah, blah. I would attest, I would assume I fall into that group proudly. We do not want to take over the school board. We do not want to close the school. That's insanity. We want to serve our students, but we want to be open-minded that there might be something new. There might be something different that maybe we're not aware of, maybe a funding or an opportunity, something that maybe we ought to be aware of, keep our minds open, that could benefit our students. So what I would really like to see is all of this conversation about this group of divisive people who are creating division in our community, that stop, like today, because it's against the law and it's not benefiting our school and it's not benefiting our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robbie. Are there other public comments?
I'll say something. I agree that there has been a lot of probably misunderstanding and assumptions been made since the election. And it is true that it has caused division. There is division. And you know, how it started isn't up for debate. But I do want to say that I agree. I think everyone probably hopes that we can move on from this now that, you know, our board is set and we're able to hopefully have all the people in there that can discuss things and make informed decisions based on their conscience. And I also want to point out that our school is not fully represented by community members because 78% of our high school is out of district and 66% of our elementary school is out of district. So it is important to remember that while you hear the voice of the community, you also are able to hear the voice of parents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
As an out of district mom, thank you. I don't feel very prepared either. I haven't done a huge amount of homework. And I'm here just to say, salary, you still wouldn't come close to the value that they bring to the school. In Japan, they pay teachers commensurate with doctors and lawyers. Like, I just want to say that my son has had a really hard time in a lot of the public school system and absolutely adore the district.
Thank you very much. Would someone else like to speak?
Yes, I'd like to reiterate that not only in support of the out of district parents, but I'm an out of district employee. So I wasn't able to vote for any of these people. So,
Anyone else? We do have a second public comment period, so if you would like to stay and listen to the entire meeting and you've come up with a good idea or something you forgot to say, then we do have a second opportunity for public comment. All right, thank you. Dokie, what's next? Budget.
On the budget status report. The one you'll see on the screen there. For both of these budget reports prepared by our business manager, Kristen Carell. I asked her if she had any comments she wanted to share with the board. And she just wanted to point out that because this activity is through the month of February. We're at the 6-month mark, so officially halfway through the fiscal year. Mill A is on track to stay under budget for the year. Revenue is trending in a positive way compared to expenditures to date. Legal costs trending well over budget, but with ongoing bargaining, that's no surprise. Maintenance costs are up, but otherwise not much to report. As most areas are looking right around or under 50% of the budget used through February. So she didn't have anything concerning, anything noteworthy. We're tracking in all categories, except for those two that she pointed out, but those are known.
That's it?
Yes, that is
Okay,
it.
So, so when we get down to item 10, we'll be doing the whole schedule that we have in front of us.
Well, that's
Thank
a
you very much.
completely, yeah, that's looking forward to next
Yep,
year's budget.
Yep,
This was
we'll
just
go
the
over the whole
month
schedule.
budget status.
Does
All good.
anyone have any questions or comments about the budget presentation? As Bob said, we're 50% through the year, so if you look at the right-hand column, you can see the percentage on your report of expenditures and the percentages of income. All right, thank you. Should we move on?
Should, got a lot. Superintendent report.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, that was a great photo. Couple weeks ago, Tim Belcher and I met with the ESD 112 safety coordinator, Underwood Fire District representative, and representative DNR to conduct a fire-wise assessment of the building and the grounds. They didn't really have any significant concerns or recommendations, you know, a little bit of limbing up. We had a conversation about Little Forest. And there was conversation about the possibility of some of the cleanup in there being done in coordination with Department of Natural Resources training. That might be a little complicated, but there's a possibility we might be able to leverage that that partnership. And then there was also conversation about the district being willing to host a community chipping collection site. There's a huge chipper. I don't remember what the acronym was. It was MARS. The organization's based out of Goldendale, out of Trout Lake. And they've been out here to Mill A before, where community members can sign up for chipping. We just have to have the branches accessible and all that kind of stuff. And so they asked if the district might be interested in facilitating that for community members, if they can have the chipper centrally located here on the grounds. And so we're coordinating that and kind of exploring that with them if there's interest among the community members.
I assume the community isn't gonna actually use the chipper though.
That's
We don't really want.
There's-
It's an ugly machine.
being able just to
We don't
bring
wanna
it and
farm
drop
those
it off
situations.
and have all that chipping done and would, that it could be beneficial. I'm sorry?
What are you gonna do with the chips out?
Well,
Has a plan.
yeah, Tim believes that we could use a fair amount of those chips here on site. If some community members were interested in them, there's no reason that couldn't be available.
So most people don't want to transport their limbs to a chipper. It's much nicer if the chipper gets transported to the limb. So if the community, if we can get enough, people wanting to do this, we can set up a day where they bring the chipper in, everybody has their property and their chips in a pile.
Or
or their limbs
branches.
in a pile, the chipper can go around and chip. And because that's the community way, because if you can transport your limbs with a truck or trailer or whatever, you can, I don't know, take them out in the woods and dump them off. So, because most people don't want to have
Schultz
to
is
do
like-
that. It's much easier to file them on your property and have chippers come to it. And they understand it. So.
Yeah, they weren't,
Day,
yeah, to your point, yeah, they were not saying that the only thing they could do is bring the chipper to one site. They were just asking us if we'd be willing to have some of the district property used as a location if somebody just wanted to bring them and drop them off.
Sure.
So Tim's done a lot of work coordinating with these guys. Got to keep this moving in the interest of time. Board docs update. We'll have the agenda and minutes facilitated through board docs by next month, hopefully by the end of April. Policies will be online. Board docs, and this is just a snip of the Mill A School District board docs site. You notice that big white empty space is because we need a new photo of the board for the website, but then also for right here on the board doc site. So we don't have a big empty white space. That'll be you guys there. So at the end of the meeting, we have some signing to do, and we'll get some pictures. So don't leave at the end.
So that it's the agenda, the minutes and the policies.
Yes.
Okay, that's gonna be awesome, guys.
And
And the,
we'll come,
and the draft minutes, that was shortly within days of the meeting.
all there, it's all available. We'll come back to the May 6th board training. We penciled that in. But that date isn't approved by the board yet, but our rep, the board docs rep, who's working with Lisa and me, is available. He's reserved some time to meet, to join the May 6th meeting if the board agrees to have that, and he'll just be willing to conduct a brief 15-30-minute board training for the benefit of the board. So that's what that is. Last Friday, attended the regional ESD 112 superintendent meeting. And several things were shared on the financial side. One, and we'll talk about MSOC more when we get into budgeting, but if you hear talk about the legislature approving more resources for materials, supplies, and operating costs. It was a rather puny investment on the part of the legislature, a whopping $23 more per student. ESD had calculated that it would take approximately $400 more per student. And this was, the legislator knew this. They knew that they have been grossly underfunding materials and supplies and operating costs. I don't expect you to be able to see or read these images, but this is ESD 112. They sent out a report and just showing that over the past few years, that the gap has widened significantly between costs and revenues provided by the state for insurance, falls under this category. Utilities falls under this category. Here's the cost line. This is the revenue line. And what things cost us just to operate the school are getting so much more expensive. That gap widened in 4 years by $70 million for ESD 112 and $38.5 million in just 2 years' time. So, I mean, it's going to impact, it's part of our budget. Just wanted you to know if the state says, hey, we're giving you some more money, it's still not keeping up with costs, but we'll talk about MSOCs more when we get into budgeting. Just wanted to share that because it's news from the legislature. And speaking of good news, ESD 112 Superintendent Tim Merlino brought in a representative of the insurance group. We're part of their insurance co-op. That's how we get our insurance, all of our insurance. And he did not have good news for the state of Washington. And basically said that some of the laws passed in the state of Washington make school insurance more expensive than our neighboring states just because of some of the laws that we have in the state of Washington. It's just a drag. He used the term significant shift, liability hazards. The ones, and there's a bunch, but the ones that really kind of impact our region are wildfire, that's right, and snow and ice. And apparently there's been enough damage to schools in the past couple of years, or risk of, that's going to impact our insurance. They haven't provided an estimate, but just knowing going into it that our insurance is school insurance. This is not employee insurance. This is school insurance, but it's going to be a big hit. ESD 112 will try to provide an estimate for us. The good news, save the good news for last, capital budget. The state approved additional resources for supplemental capital projects funding. And then they also did something cool. They decreased the amount that the local community needs to contribute, and they decreased the per square foot project cost to be eligible for SCAP. The project does not need to cost as much per square foot as it did previously. This is good news for us. And even better news, I've been so ESD 112 connected me with a project director in the construction services group. And basically what he has found a way to do is to use small district modernization grant funds to cover the local cost, the local community, the local district matching funds. Here we go. Supplemental capital projects funds. The state will fund like 72 cents on the dollar. The district has to come up with, for us, this is different for every district. For our district, the state would fund 72 cents on every dollar for a project. We'd have to come up with the other 28%. This guy, the Construction Services Group, says that with the state increase in small district modernization grant funds, that we can use those grant funds to cover the local cost. Which means that it would cost us nothing. And so I had an hour-long conversation with him. We thought it was going to be 30 minutes, an hour-long conversation with him on Friday. He's trying to find a time to come out here to our campus sometime this week. We got to get this moving forward. But it was a couple of years ago when I applied again for a modernization grant. We weren't even in the top 50, but the state has gone back down and awarded some of those funds as a planning grant. So we're using those to plan for this next round of grant funding. And the guy from the Construction Services Group is fairly optimistic. So
I was just gonna say real quick, I was looking through one of the bills and it was so hard to read because there's this funding and that funding for schools and counties. And one of the things it did mention was solar. Did they say anything about funding or anything in new coming through on solar options? Okay,
he didn't mention anything about solar.
okay.
So Bob, do you have a suggestion of greatest need or where you would?
Yes, and that conversation is something that will typically, yeah, there's a proposed date for when we'll have that conversation about facilities and projects. So, yeah, cool. Update next month. It could potentially be really exciting. Just some fun, not so necessarily so heavy, just some fun stuff. Launching an after-school learning support project, a couple days a week after school. Facilitated by our very own Miss Erica Almskar. And more fun news, PCI Knowledge Bowl regional champions heading to state upcoming weekend. There's your varsity team right there. Elijah, Blake, and Jordan. Fantastic. And another good news, we completed the bargaining with the Teachers Association. Solution is sustainably, long-term sustainable. That was our interest, of course, as the district that whatever we reached satisfied the Teachers Association and also kept us sustainable. That was essential. A huge shout out to our attorney, Tracy Miller, and our business manager, Kristen Carell. They did so much work to bring us to this point. So, I mean, next steps, it's been tentatively approved. We've been informed of that. There's going to be voting among the Teachers Association, and then I'll be able to bring it to the board for approval.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna say thank you to Tracy and Kim, but when they're bargaining and when it's an adverse bargaining, there's two sides. And so to get to a solution, I want to thank both sides that worked through that to come up with a final solution.
Right, thanks for the
How
teacher
long-
side and everything they did to. Sorry.
How long is the new contract?
It's a 3-year contract, but that includes this year. So really 2 years beyond the 23-24 school year.
We know people worked a long time, everyone did. And I think that they all had the same goal. I'm glad to find that they were able to. And that's pretty awesome. Anything else, Bob? And Bob,
Nope,
thank
nope,
you. I
that's
see
it.
legislative report. I had not noticed that before. I appreciate that being there.
You're
This is just a real quick thing. There was a piece of legislation that was passed that may cause us some heartache just because I think that parents may be quite, have serious opinions on this legislation. So we will not see this legislation that's being passed. We will not see anything as a result of this legislation until OSPI does, the curriculum. OSPI is responsible for writing the curriculum that will result from this legislation. Once OSP writes the curriculum, then WASDA will write a policy. And so we will see the policy. I don't know what the timeline will be, who knows? But it could be a while, but this piece of legislation, in basic words of which I did not write, is requires schools to have inclusive curriculum and written by OSPI that will be required to teach the history and information regarding people in marginalized groups. It will be integrated into curriculum. And there's copies for everyone. We could put extra at the end of the table. So I'm not bringing it up for discussion, just bringing it up so that if you choose to look into it, you can do that. It would, I think it'd be good for the board to be prepared when the policy comes through and encourage the public to bring us their opinions when the policy comes through. Okay, that's all I have on legislation. There are a couple other bills that passed, but they were just too complicated and better off to wait and see what comes out as a result of where they're clarified. It was full of all kinds of stuff.
I thought you were gonna say something about the electric bus bill. No?
I couldn't get into all of them, but, and there is one that's got all kinds of funding things in it, but it's written so, like you think, oh, it's a lot of money, $12 million, but it goes to the schools and the county and until they come up with what it really means, it's kind of useless.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It's one that had solar in it. So what's this electric bus?
Yeah, there is a date established and I haven't seen. I didn't wait through the legislation either. I'm just waiting for a report to come through that summarizes everything, but there was some legislation passed that at some point in the future, all school districts all new bus purchases need to be zero emissions.
Okay.
Well, and at what point all of the rural superintendents said, how's this gonna work for us? So, but it's out of list. That is-
They have a new bus. Doesn't have a big department. Their routes are too big.
Right.
Their routes are too long.
They won't make it back
So-
home.
So anyway, more on that, of course, when it actually comes through.
Can you just say more?
I just gotta say.
would you,
there's no such thing as a carbon neutral anything.
Would you like,
500,000 tons of earth gets removed to make one car battery. Electric car battery. Really?
We have fun times ahead.
Joy.
Well, we have next a mid-year academic report, right, Bob?
yes? we do.
There's that
wait,
picture I
wait.
like.
There we are. So Mr. One, a summary. Middle High School for K through 8 students. This is based off the mid-year, the winter. Star 360 is the platform we use to measure reading and math. 69% of our K through 8 students are at or above benchmark in reading. 24% are on watch. That means they are slightly below grade level, and 7% of our K3 students are significantly below grade level. They're more, one or more grade level below where they're expected. Another measure that's important, of course, is how much our students are increasing in their knowledge, how much they're growing. And there's two sides to this. I mean, there might be a student who is, let's just say hypothetically, there might be a student who's in 6th grade, who's reading at the 10th grade level. And so they might not demonstrate a whole lot of growth. But they still might be well over where they're expected. I mean, the other side of this could be someone is below grade level, and they might not be making the growth we want. And of course, that's the one that we're having to look really closely at, and making sure that we're providing additional supports for them. But in general, we're looking both at where students are at compared to their grade level expected, and how much they're growing in their knowledge and reading.
Can I say something that I don't know if the new board members are familiar or not, but Bob, there's an individual improvement plan. Is that the right IEP for each student, or for students who need additional attention or something? Is it for all students or just certain ones?
No, only students who qualify for additional services have an IEP. And so that means that they're receiving specially designed instruction.
Okay,
It's in common terms, it's just called special education.
so most of the students in the yellow and the orange have IEPs?
No,
No, okay.
there might be,
Anybody
there might be
have
a
any
few.
questions about this graph up here? Thank you, Bob.
The other measure is how we're doing in math. And more concern here, only 34% of our students are at or above benchmark at expected grade level. In math, 25% are slightly below grade level, but 41% are one or more grade level below. So we're exploring options with the instructional team for additional instructional supports, instructional coaching, professional development. They're called tier 2 and tier 3 supports for students who are in the red or who are not increasing, especially those who are red or yellow and not increasing.
So, Bob, when it says growth goal, 52% meeting and exceeding,
Yeah.
does that mean the goal is to have 52%? Or
Oh.
we currently?
Oh, thanks for asking. No, that's okay. At this point in the school year, halfway through the school year, students by this program should be able to demonstrate they should have grown in their knowledge in math about this much. 52% of our students have increased in their knowledge.
So maybe those 52% may have been behind, but they're growing what you would expect.
That
They're
is,
starting.
that's a possibility, yes.
So just like what you said about the reading.
Could be. Yep. Right.
So,
And so some of those 52%,
and this is for all.
yes, this is all K through 8, Yep.
Oh,
So
all K through 8.
So when it says MAS, that's CIA.
Yep. In fact, we'll get there next.
So 41%
Yeah.
red. That means we got a lot of work to do.
Yep. Well, yeah, we need to do what we can and figure out what we need to do better and differently to
Yeah, because
get those students up, the reds up into the yellows up into the blue.
So with such a
Yeah.
large percentage there, do you have a significant challenge? Because each student may have a significantly different approach that's needed. Is that something?
And that's why we need to look at both the student needs, the learning needs, professional development for our teachers to be able to find the ways to meet the students where they're at. And then we also need to provide support for our teachers. They have a very, very challenging thing. They're teaching oftentimes not only 3 grade levels of math, but sometimes more than 3 grade levels of math at one time for their entire class group.
So do we have enough flexibility in our budget so that if you find costs for this help that's needed or increase, you don't have to come back to the board? You
So
have flexibility there to cover that?
for the current year, yes,
Yes, right,
yes,
for the
we
current
do.
year.
Yeah, and we're expending, the board has already approved
Enough,
ESSER funds,
okay.
and we're using those to meet professional development and some of the, like we talked about, some after-school support specifically to meet to support some of the students who we have targeted as being yellow or red.
Okay.
So you're saying you have enough for this current?
Yep, and when we get to budgeting, we're talking about next year, we're talking about needing to invest in professional development and needing to invest in supports for students, whether they be after-school programs or support during the school day, then this is what we need to keep in mind. And, oh, well, there's the slide right there, yes.
All right.
I already mentioned briefly, after-school program that's starting into this month, that's funded with ESSER $3 that the board has already approved for this purpose. We've begun initial planning for summer school. Again, the board has already approved the use of ESSER funds to meet that need. This will be the last summer we can use those funds for this purpose.
So do any of the new members like to have Bob tell us what ESSER means?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Right. Been doing this for so long. The federal COVID relief dollars that made their way through the states down to schools. And we had, what do we have, like all of like 118,000, and some of that could be used for facilities and some of that specifically for learning and learning support and addressing learning loss. But it was all just federal dollars made available to schools.
Was
Thank
it
you.
our last year? for
Yes,
this
it is. Yes, it is. Just a brief mention about PCIe students. 25% of our students, and they're listed there, 25% of our students on the dean's list, that's a GPA of 3.5 to 3.84. 25% of PCIe students on the principal's list, that's a GPA of 3.85 to 4.0, and you see 2 of our students, Caitlin Stradley and Jordan Mooksham, the perfect 4.0 students. PCI, of course, is a college and the high school program. 75% of our PCI students were enrolled in at least one dual credit course, in a total for the one semester alone, 290 credits earned by our PCI students last semester.
That's pretty awesome.
Good work.
Awesome. Very awesome.
That,
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons that kids are behind nationwide
Mhm.
and everything else, but the concerning thing is that's not reasons why they're not growing. So that 52% is bigger than, because even if kids are starting, if they're growing, that shows
Yeah,
where,
these numbers are showing up everywhere.
but so how do we? But that's the most concerning number. That was with the growth goal of that.
Well, I'm just really happy we have already approved the funds that we have plans for summer school and after school both. Those are both good for you. Okay, everybody ready? Let's go on oceanography field trip. Do we have any students here to talk about it, or? Oh, they already did it.
No, this was from a few years ago.
Oh,
I asked Mr. Manzuzer if he was interested in just coming and presenting. And he just shared a few comments. He asked me to share a few comments, with the board. The field trip is part of the Oceanography College and High School course, allowing students chance to apply concepts learned in the classroom in real marine ecosystems. The Olympic Peninsula, which is where they're at there, provides unique habitats and protects refugees for students. Protected refuges for students to explore. There's no refugees. No, there's protected refuges. Students will be collecting data and performing observations during the trip and presentations after they return. Evidence of educational research is overwhelmingly shown. Hands-on research and observation increase student success in meeting the course objectives. He's provided an extensive trip plan and itinerary. He's conducted this trip at least twice. Caden, did you ever get to go on this trip? No, you were in that year. You're right. Dang it. Yep.
Where are they going?
The Olympic Peninsula. We're going all the way up to the very top of the Olympic Peninsula. Yeah.
So I have the opportunity to talk to a little student or two that has been on that trip. And, I found it incredible.
So are you referring to your daughter, Alana?
I was.
Yeah. So my son Noah also was able to be a part of this trip, and it was when I asked him about it afterwards, it was his most memorable part of the entire year. So extremely worthwhile, beneficial opportunity that he makes available for our students and meets an objective of the college and the high school course as well.
so is it a certain grade level or student class, a specific class that's going?
It is an oceanography 101 class that he
Okay.
teaches.
And that's who's going?
Yes.
And how many students?
Yeah, it's 8 or 9. It's 2 vehicles. Yeah. So, but the reason, well, it's just great. It's just great to hear about what's happening. But the trip is not scheduled until the end of May. He takes the trip over Memorial Day weekend, adds a little bit on each end. But because it's an overnight field trip, it requires board approval. So when we get down to the end of the agenda, you'll see that one of the action items is approval of the board for this field trip. So as far as how it's funded, it's in part funded with dedicated funds in the budget for the course, but then also we can use some of the Title IV grant funds. Their field trips are a little more restrictive. Title IV field trips have to be STEM focused. This fits the bill. And so we can use some of those resources to help subsidize the cost of this trip.
Pretty cool.
And how long are they going?
It's a 4 or 5 day trip.
Probably
Yeah,
certainly okay to get up there.
yeah. Yeah, 4 day trip. 24th to 25th.
Okay, next is our calendar for this year and sorry, we used all our snow days, so we don't get.
Well,
We have to go to school 3 more
that'll
days.
be one of the things we talk about. So hold on. Okay. There's 2 calendars we're going to talk about. I'm going to ask you at first to make sure that you're looking at the one that says at the top 23-24 3.0 draft. 23-24. There we go. Cool. So we're in this situation, because we had to cancel 5 days. We only had 3 built-in snow days. These are the 2 days worth of time. And after calculating how many hours we were short, I conducted an extremely brief survey to all of the staff. And I was asking if they had a preference for how we went about this. I ran a couple scenarios for the ways we can make up the time. Did the staff have a strong preference? As you can see, the green right there, they had a very strong preference that if we could, we would use some early release Wednesdays. And so I'd already calculated how many early release Wednesdays we needed to change, ran some scenarios for if there's preferences for which early release Wednesdays we would turn into full days. And there was a preference there. On the bottom, some people didn't really seem to care, but of those that had a preference, it was an overwhelming majority would prefer the calendar that you have before you, which is taking the last Wednesday. If you look at March, the last Wednesday of March, the last Wednesday of April, the last Wednesday of May, those are all pink now. They would be full days, not green early release days. And the 2 Wednesdays in June, the 5th and the 12th. And those would be full days, full normal days, not early release. And by converting those to full days, we would meet our minimum instruction hour requirement as established by State Board of Education.
Is that eliminating on March the 29th, May the 28th, eliminating all the other things?
Those pinks are, those are school days now. Everything in pink you have there will be a school day, a full school day. Because we need to use those to make up days that were canceled.
Right, that's what I'm
Yep.
asking, so it's all of it.
All of the pinks. Yep, that's right.
So how do we let parents know so they can
Mm.
change their, that's
So,
gotta be a challenge.
well, some have been asking, and Lisa's been putting them on hold, letting them know that this is something the board would have to approve. We did, we proposed this to the Teachers Association, and they TA'd it. They gave it their thumbs up, which is why I get to bring it to you at this point. It's the calendar is one of the things that is bargained with the Teachers
So-
Association. So
So
that
we're
has
not
been approved.
extending at the end of the year then by doing this.
Exactly, which was one of the most. Yeah, I think it was the most interest among most of the staff is that the end of the school year not be extended.
Okay.
What's the last day of school?
That will be on the 13th as it, yep, no change to the end of school. So, when we get to action items, we'll have the opportunity to approve this new calendar. I'm not gonna ask the board to approve submittal of a waiver yet, because OSPI is not even gonna, they're not even gonna receive them yet until we get to April. They've just told us, don't even send us waiver requests. This will require a waiver request because we're not using all 180 days. But they provided the reassurance that as long as we're meeting the instructional hours
Yes.
requirement, that they'll grant the waivers. So,
And so this year we don't have any 12th or 8th graders?
that is correct. That is another change. You'll notice that down in the very, very bottom. This is an update, no promotion, no graduation. It's the weirdest thing. It is the weirdest thing. Any questions about the 23-24 version 3.0 draft? No? Okay, now. There there were a couple of options for the 24-25, and somehow the wrong copy, I think, ended up in your folders. I don't need that. What you want to have is you want it to say draft option 1. So I'm gonna, to make sure that everyone had the correct calendar, take
This
one of
one
those.
says Option 2.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
This is not the good one, okay.
No. And we'll get to. I drafted a couple options. And I ran a survey back in early February. So all the staff asking them some of the questions. They had preferences about start and end, winter break, spring break, conferences. The calendar that I'm going to present has been tentatively approved by the Teacher Association. What we need next is your approval. Some things that came out of that survey: the preferred start day, teacher prep days. That was a question. Fall and spring conference dates, and then the holiday breaks, snow days. Something different about snow days here. So I'm proposing that we build in 5 snow days. The number of times we have needed to request a waiver almost every other year that I've served this district. And when I talked to some of the neighboring districts and asked them how many snow days, some of them are staying with 2 and 3, but some of them locally, especially that deal with ice and snow like we do, have increased the number of snow days to 4 or 5. So that's a change from last year. Also, I learned that the other Skamania districts have begun stacking snow makeup days at the end of the year.
I see that, that's new.
And it is new, and it is, yeah. So, also, I think this is the first time since I've worked in LA that spring break hasn't been the first full week of April. It's almost always the first full week of April. And this year there was a strong preference that spring break start March 31st. Instead of waiting a whole nother week.
But
There's several advantages there in that it aligns to Stevenson Carson. White Salmon still hasn't made a decision yet, so we can't wait forever. But
Well, this is gonna have our kids all going, no snow, because we want school out early, right?
that might be.
Depends if they're, not want the immediate
Instead
gratification.
of they're hoping for snow, they're hoping for no snow.
So
So if somebody isn't aware, this has their snow days at the end of the year, so we end 3 days earlier.
So two of the 5 snow days, you'll see one in March, the Friday before spring break. You'll see one on May 27th, the day after Memorial Day. And then the other 3, if needed, would extend the last day of school. But it would still stay within the second week of June, if we need to.
And they also, if it works out right, give people 4 days of kids.
Well, that March 28th would, because that's on the front end spring break, that would just extend that just
That June,
a little bit
March.
more. So this has been presented to and tentatively approved by the association, so ready for board approval of that calendar. Questions?
So the approval of the calendar be at the end of the meeting here with our other approval. So
Yes.
That might be a
Yeah, 10-day weekend. Wow, but we're definitely not gonna be wanting snow this year. So does anybody have any questions on the calendars for Bob? Okay, dokie. Now comes the challenge part of, are you gonna present the timeline first?
This is just a proposal.
Okay.
I have shared this with Kristen. To make sure that, not necessarily the meeting dates, the meeting dates is just, it's totally up to you. This follows the same kind of cycle we've run the previous few years. Building the capacity for budget workshops between regular board meetings. So that we don't end up in these situations where the board meetings have to go hours and hours long. So, but as far as what to expect, on the bottom part of that, share this with Kristen. Kristen thinks that this is reasonable. She'd be able to meet these timelines as far as what we would be able to provide updates to the board, or as we go through the budgeting process. So, I guess really starting here, and the question is, when we're looking at May 6th, we're looking at June 3rd, if necessary, June 24th, if necessary. Are those dates that can work for the board, or just would you like different dates for special meetings between the regular meetings that are? The draft part of this really is about the dates.
I checked my calendar. So far, those Mondays are clear. So these are all Mondays, all at 6 o'clock.
Rather, when we did it,
So let me ask you what the time frame is.
Oh, yes,
There should be a. Calendar, there's
I think,
a list.
yeah, there's
Oh,
not,
you got it.
there's not times.
So it's a 7 to 7:30.
Well, the 7 to 7:30 is the budget hearing.
Okay.
And that would just be at the end of that July, but that's at the very, very end of the process. In the past, the board has just conducted budget workshop special meetings at the same time as a regular meeting. So,
with additional if necessary.
yeah,
My concern is, we're hitting that June 24th. But that really makes things tight. Getting something that like where we possibly improve it. And go to time for comment.
Well, I think that's a challenge we've seen before. I think you hit it on the head there with the work on the budget. We get down to the public hearing. We don't give ourselves time to discuss any public comments we might have had. We hope that we have gotten public comments before then, so that we've already, input them into the budget as may be applicable. But sometimes, we do get comments that are new or different or something. But when we get this tight time schedule, we also have the time to do that.
And a lot of stuff we need doesn't come out from the state until that's what we're gonna do.
I don't think that's gonna be the case this year. Kristen's saying there's more is known earlier and released earlier.
Like to me, it would be really nice if we could figure out a way to actually be releasing or finishing up our budget earlier.
So are there any other chores?
So what you said is gonna be, Kristen said if we may be able to get that
Yeah.
earlier.
And usually, yeah, it depends on the year.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Are you proposing that if we needed another day, that we find a time before the 17th regular meeting, like perhaps maybe the 10th? I mean, there's another Monday, June 10th. As opposed to the 24th. which is running really late.
I don't know what I'm making a proposal. I've done this the last several years where it's just like, we don't have the funding, we put it out. It's out at the last minute and then we have to have it approved. So we just have like, hey, and then public comment, but we have no even options to do anything because
And there- and
we couldn't even take into account public comment. We propose something before we approve it.
That's
It's just like-
exactly right, yeah.
And we get locked into this like unfriendly.
Well, I think one of the things we can do to help that is make sure we have hard copies for public to look at. That might
Sure.
help.
Well, and it may be that like this is the right schedule, but our goal as a board should be to, if we can finish it sooner, make it available at an earlier date than the July 1st we have.
And so also, Eric, don't we need to, we have a couple of other homework things like, superintendent evaluation, board evaluation that we have to finish before that too. And of course, Bob, you've got a lot on your shoulders. before,
So-
Right?
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, these, you'll see these down there's more that needs to happen in these meetings than just talking about the budget. The capital projects planning.
Right.
And so we'll have more information about the modernization grant, the SCAP by that point.
Did you have a special meeting for that discussion already set? No, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
it's
but
on-
no, oh, the 6th. I knew there was something else the 6th. And I had printed this. I had proposed that the board docs training take place on the 6th, May 6th, in that special meeting.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it wouldn't be an additional date. It would be at the front end of that meeting.
And it's a workshop. It's not
It's a
an
workshop.
action meeting, so
No.
we could do that real easy, yeah.
Page
Supposedly real
6.
easy.
Well, in theory, there's less unknowns around the budget this year, so maybe as a group will be able to get through it quicker than some past years.
And, you know, unless we have some kind of issue because we're losing some different funds, like ESSER funds or something like.
Sure.
But there we have to address.
But we haven't established any positions that are ongoing funded by ESSER, like a lot of other districts do.
I'd say, Bob, what else do you need for what's on the calendar?
well,
Anything?
At this point, are you saying that you'd like me to move forward with tentatively scheduling these dates?
So Bob has presented a calendar to us. Do we have any further comments? If not, then I think we should at least come to a consensus that we can move forward with this calendar. Does that make sense with everyone?
And you're going with the majority of the faculty on the.
And I'm talking about the budget calendar.
No,
Oh,
this is the schedule. He's just talking about the
Dates.
schedule of the dates for the meetings. That's the only thing we're talking about.
So how, any questions, Keith?
No, I'm good with all
Are you-
the only thing I gotta worry about is hit or miss with watching my grandson. And I can always. Only a couple hours.
It's not kids anymore, it's grandkids. How about you, Bill? How do you like?
I'm flexible. I can do what
Okay,
majority
it
wants to
looks
do.
pretty good to me, so.
There might be a meeting I have to miss.
Okay.
Still. Move on.
But you're ready to go, you're happy with this?
Yeah, I think so.
Bob, it looks like you have consensus unless you'd like a motion.
No, and I'm
You're
fine.
happy with the
Yeah,
consensus?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's.
Okay,
show
look forward
that
to
we
that.
reached a consensus on the budget calendar, the budget timeline.
Okay, fantastic. So the two things that I had planned on just briefly discussing with the board today, if you'd like, were just a discussion about the revenue calculator, just a brief conversation about revenue, how we get the money we get, and how we estimate that for budgeting purposes. And then just taking a look at the budget worksheet itself. When we're looking at the agenda and everything else that remains with the time we have, none of that conversation is due. All of that is just referencing last year's. Is that something you want to spend time on still, or in the interest of time, do you want to push that to next month?
Okay, so the rest of our agenda has, a few new items which folks may have. Of course, I have one or two. Then we have a review of policies, but we are not making none of those policies an action item at this meeting. So we'll probably have that'll probably go fast. Then the question is, we have this agenda. Do you want to hear what Bob has to say on the budget right now? Or are you concerned about the meeting taking longer than what you can stay? No, but I'm good. Good with Bob going ahead? Okay, Bob, let's go ahead with what you've got for us.
So. We, the district has had for several years a revenue estimating tool. It's a spreadsheet here. It was originally created by the late Angela Morrill when she served on the board. Our previous business manager, Carrie, continued to refine this and keep it up to date. And what it has done for us is that it gives us at the very beginning of the budgeting process, it gives us an idea of how much money the district has. How much money do you have to work with? And historically, if you're going back, I guess this was probably almost 10 years ago, this was originally created. The board didn't really have numbers from the state until much, much later. We have to start the conversations now. And so this is all just about having some ballpark. This is historically it's been accurate within 0.5%. So it's reasonably accurate. Kristen's going to be able to get us real numbers, and then that will change things, but not a whole lot. But the important thing for us to understand is how we get our money, especially since there's a lot of talk about the prototypical funding formula. And it kind of just rolls off the tongue, prototypical funding formula, but that is basically how the bigger schools, the normal size schools, or the really big schools, they have a formula for how they get their money. That does not apply to us. There's a completely separate formula for micro-sized schools like us, and it's the small school funding formula. And so it's important to know the difference, because if you're talking to anyone else in our neighboring districts, and if they're talking about how they get their money, it just simply does not apply to us. So there are some things that the state just gives per teacher, or per funded teacher position, or administrative position, or classified positions. There's different allocations based on the types of employees. They give us certain amounts of money for insurance, and then those are adjusted annually by inflation. This was their previous estimate. They have released the actual, and I was searching my emails before the meeting, and I haven't received the actual from Kristen, but people at ESD 112 are talking about it. So that number's highlighted because it's going to change a little bit. And that just means that how much more they give us compared to last year, it's going to go up a little bit less. It's either 3.6 or 3.7 inflationary factor. But that's just how much they give us per position. Here's the thing that's really special about this tool is we just kind of come down here. When we're looking at next year, which of course we're starting to talk about next year. State's going to give us about approximately in the ballpark of $650,000 to run the K-8 school. That's how much money we would have if we only had a K-8 school. And we keep our revenues and our expenditures separate for this very important reason. So we keep in mind that we don't have a $2 million budget. We have like 2 revenue streams. And when I was talking to the construction services group guy, he was like, what kind of district are you? It says here you're a K-8 district. Well, we are. We're a K-8 district. We just happen to have this special high school program that's not a high school, but there's high school age students. It's the weirdest thing. He's like, wow. He got, the more we talked, the more interested he got in working with us because we're so unique. I'm like, oh yeah, we're unique, all right. But anyway, so about that much for the KA side of revenue on the a totally different pot of money for the academy. And in the ballpark of 1.48 million is provided by the state to the district to run the PCIA program as proposed and approved by the state. Now, the interesting thing is that these monies, they come to the district. And so the district has a budget. But when we get to how we look at our expenses, the fact that some of our expenses are unique because we have PCIA. We wouldn't have some of our staffing expenses at all if we didn't have the academy. Yeah. A bunch of our teachers. We'd lose dean of students. We'd lose a lot. I mean, we lose a lot of the revenue. So PCIA has value for our students, for the students in our community, for the students in the region, which is why OSPI funded, because we're providing this dual credit opportunity for students in the region.
And our 2 schools benefit each other.
And our 2 schools benefit each other. Yes, the K-8 school benefits from PCIA, both because of opportunities and because of the revenue stream. So this was just about recognizing that these 2 pots of money, we get them in one lump sum, but really they're very, very different. And the only one that we're guaranteed to have is that 650,000. Because we don't have to have PCIA. If we lose PCIA, if we're no longer eligible for PCIA, we no longer meet the requirements for that, then that would go away. The revenue would go away. But as long as we're a district, because we're a K-8 district, we'll be able to operate our school with a little desegregation there. So I'm sorry I went so long. Yes.
I think there's important clarification there.
Mhm.
The PCIA is actually a consortium of K-8 districts with Mount Pleasant. And they're our partner in putting the application out, and we need to maintain that partnership. If we didn't have a partner district, it's written in the Washington state statutes that we had to get at least one partner and go in together with our application.
Yes, we needed to be a cooperative.
That's co-op.
Yep.
And I'm glad you brought that up because the reliability of PCIA, that is the critical element of being able to keep PCIA viable.
That's right. So we maintained a good relationship with our partner
Mhm.
district with Mount Pleasant.
And,
It's,
you know, and I don't know what the board can do besides support you, but if there's something the board can do, let us know.
Yes, yes, a quick look. And this is just a quick look. For, for your reference and maybe in the past, but in the interest of time, just a quick look that, we're kind of starting to talk about next year. But these are all expenses. And so that little parentheses thing that just shows that they're a cost or a negative. And these are all the expenses we have, but notice that they're two separate columns because some of them are unique to the KA school. And some of them are unique to PCIA, and some of them are shared. I mean, here's teachers, certificated instructional staff. Yep. We've got teachers in both schools. Yeah. But we have academic advisor. Academic advisor, well, if we didn't have PCA, we wouldn't have that position. And that's why it's in that column exclusively. And that's why we keep these separate, really, just for ourselves. We keep both the expenses and the revenue straight. And so as we get into budgeting, some of these are simply increased by inflation. And some of them will have a conversation about whether they might be increased or decreased.
Right.
And so that's why it takes so much time. Down on the bottom, there's revenues. And this revenue estimate, those, you probably recognize that $650,000. Well, that's connected to that other calculator. So, and then in the end, that we make sure we stay in the black. And so that's how we use this 4-year spreadsheet for the benefit of the board, trying to consolidate, oh geez, I don't know how many pages. I have a lot of pages of documents, trying to consolidate it all. So it's something we can see and understand in a manageable way, the 4-year plan, even though we're talking about next year. But the state, I don't know how many years ago, 5 years, 6 years ago, maybe the state required that every district submit a 4-year operating budget. And so Kristen's going to work on rolling this over so that it's 24 through 28. By our next April meeting, we'll have a first draft of that.
That was gonna be my question, because I didn't know if yeah, you answered my question, thank you.
So I'm sorry if that went a little long, but just a brief conversation about revenue and expenses and how we use, really, most of our conversations are using this consolidated spreadsheet. It'll be interesting to see what Kristen brings to the table. She is an extremely experienced and confident business manager. I'm so impressed every time I've worked with her.
Is there some point where she might be able to come in person?
That is not in her contract, and it's outside of her working hours. So I asked her about that, and she's like, no. She's like, just let. She just wants to know what the board wants, and she'll provide all the numbers and analysis the board would like. But I already asked her about that, and she said, no, that's not in the contract. And we have that contract with ESD 112, and that's not included. She didn't join bargaining either. She's like, no, nothing. All right.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the budget and how we'll be moving forward? Okay, next item is new board business or anything good for the order. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add? First off, I would like to say, I announced that the last one so that we would know, and it's very important to the school. It's, I think it's very important to the school. I let you know that we now have a fire truck at Mill A in our hall, fire hall right here, next to the school. And we also have one at the Cook Fire Hall. And I think that's very important. And you're talking about insurance, we're hoping another year, we might see our state rating go up, so maybe that'll help with insurance, but now insurance companies are looking at more than the ratings that the fire department areas have, they're looking at all kinds of stuff, you know, it's a mess. But to make that even more important, we now have a certified fire truck driver. So when last meeting, I said we had fire trucks, but we didn't have a driver. Now we have a driver. Thank you. It's right here. And that is very important because we have a fire, the fire truck sits in the hall until the driver comes from Carson. So now we have a local driver. Hopefully, if we need him, that he would be available. We have 2 other folks being trained as firefighters. And maybe by another week, we'll have a second driver. So that's really important. But if you know someone that's interested in being a firefighter, that'd be great. We could have more than 2 or 3 guys locally. Don't look at you.
Anita, can I just ask, when you're saying we, within the context of that, none of that that's not the school district, is it? That's Fire District 1?
It is Fire District 1. And when I
Okay.
say we, I'm really kind of meaning the community. Yes. But
Okay,
it's important to
not.
the school that
Oh,
the
yeah.
school has that fire protection.
yeah, just wanted to make sure that there wasn't, it's not
We can be
it's not a
really
school
broad.
district. It'd be great to have a fire program.
It's a challenge for firefighters to join, but if you know of someone, that would be great. It's a challenge because a taxing fire district has a significant amount of state requirements, state mandatory requirements. So you have to be really good for you to be able to become a firefighter and it's not driver.
Is there a minimum age requirement for that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Is there a minimum age requirement for that?
You know, I don't, 16. Of course, I don't. They let a 16-year-old drive a truck.
Not driving, just,
Volunteer.
I mean, he's the responsible one. He would do okay. But-
Certified driver? I know.
Okay, and the next item I have is that we probably should have on our agenda, maybe you could help us, Bob, but we need to establish a plan for the board to move forward with doing the evaluations we need to do as part of the budget process. That's a board self-evaluation and a board evaluation of the superintendent. And sometimes that's challenging for new members, so we can make that evaluation be goals or missions or something, tasks or something too. The other thing I wanted to comment on is that there will be a prescribed burn take place at Cook. And DNR has completed the preparation of that land. And so they are ready to do the prescribed burn, but I wasn't able to get a time. So just so the school knows, so the bus driver might know, people might see smoke. You never know, but just so that everybody's aware, it's just kind of an announcement thing. I wanted to ask if everyone can hear clearly today. I happen to remember to wear my hearing aids, so I'm hearing pretty good. How is everyone else hearing? Getting old as heck. And Bob, I guess you can hear all of us okay. And how's the public able to hear? Okay.
We're getting recordings though, right?
I'm sorry.
We're doing recordings.
That's really good, Bill.
I was like, we should be, I don't know if anybody ever is watching the recordings that we're now taking, but like, how well are we picking up people's voices on the recordings? I think it's something to audit.
That's true. That'd be a good idea to know if that's working.
I haven't listened all the way through the recordings. But I have enough to know that audio is being detected
Okay.
in the recording, so it's legible. I don't know if it's picking up all of the peripheral conversations, but the board conversation has been clear enough. There was some interest on the part of the board when we were at ESD 112 at that nifty little
That's
camera
Apple.
device that they had. And so we're looking into what it might cost. If the board is interested in, we're talking about spending district funds what, how much, so we're looking into that, so the board would know how much it might cost if we're interested in something like that, to upgrade the audio and video recording of the board meetings.
At that meeting, they had an owl.
Capability of Zoom. So then, you know, actually everybody can just sit back at home and watch.
It is right now. Our meeting is up. I look
Oh,
at
yeah.
it much.
Okay.
There you are.
But it's not, is it live though? From
Yeah,
home,
but
and
yeah.
you watch it?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So in other words, you can zoom in and. from home.
Yes.
Okay. I mean,
It's-
didn't know you were-
It's better camera, yeah, it's better camera and audio.
I could lay in bed.
You gotta be here,
Right.
Keith. Sorry, you gotta be here. Okay. How we doing?
I have one quick thing also, just in case you noticed on the website that a press release was released by the school board. That was released, a little too early and the ESD did the press release. And of course, we hadn't had a meeting yet, so it wasn't voted on and approved by the board, but now that was just an inadvertent thing that came out, prior to the board meeting, and it should have waited till after the board meeting. So if anybody asks you about it, it was an inadvertent occurrence. I wanted to ask, do we have a book fair coming up at all? Or do we do book fairs? We don't, okay. Announces and press release, fire trucks, okay, I think that's everything I have on my list. Does anyone? Did I trigger anybody's mind for anything else we want to bring up for to add to the agenda for the next meeting, or just to let people know? All right, great. Now we go on to public, let's see, no, we got to do the policies first. Okay, you have 3 policies here. Well, that's a new business item. That's right. I even wrote it down as new business. So one of the things that, that I think that someone mentioned they wanted to discuss is how we take care of, we're recording the meeting, but also part of recording, and the word recording in the law means taking minutes. And that is a responsibility of the board gives to the superintendent, but then he can choose how that occurs. Whether he does it himself or whether a staff member does it. In the past, it's quite often been done by a staff member. When I was on the board, 2 previous times, a staff member did it. So let's talk.
Okay, so I have right here, annual organizational meeting, election of officers. Read into it, read the paragraph. The superintendent shall act as the board secretary. Okay. In order to provide a record of proceeding each meeting, the superintendent shall appoint a recording secretary of the board. So I'm just trying to figure out how you interpret it and who's taking the message. And just to clarify my concern, I'm used to minutes lasting, that'll go away. These recordings last for 1 year. These recordings, but they're supposed to start June 30th. And you're required to keep them for 1 year. That's it. So as far as I understand, the written, there's no time frame as to how long this is working.
Forever?
Right, so that's why I'm saying, you know, I have a concern on. The rule here, to me, is very clear. It says you shall appoint somebody to take minutes. So. I'm trying to figure out how who's taking minutes.
As long as I've served the district, I've continued the practice of documenting what happens in the meeting. I was when I was brought in to the district and appointed interim superintendent back in 2016. At that time, my training for how to conduct, how to record board meeting minutes, was provided by, the board chair at that time, Angela Morrill. And so I continued the practice as trained by her in accordance with requirements of the law.
Well, I just read you the policy number
Mhm.
1210, board of directors. I can give you the legal references of the RCW. And
Mhm.
I just read the superintendent shall, not may, not could. It's it's a word you cannot deny it. You know, this is something you're supposed to do. This is not a thing. I'm just trying to figure out how, I don't care when it started. Manipulating this little word.
Hmm.
But, you know, I could have started 10 years ago. That doesn't matter. Right now, I'm sitting on a board that, you know, to me, you should be appointing somebody.
Oh, I love this. Our new board member taking something off my plate already?
We're gonna fill that space, Bob.
That leads you up to have your more of your attention directed to us instead of trying to make it. Really, that's what it does. And obviously, to me, you should. appoint some.
I remember Cheryl used to do it when she was here. That was a long time ago.
Oh, I'm not a volunteer, trust me. Nobody can read my handwriting.
And I think she typed while the meeting went on, she sat there and typed it. Well, I think that, would you like to have this on the agenda for the next meeting, or would you like to discuss it
No.
further now? Do you have any questions, Bob, you want us to think about?
Put it on the next month. That gives you a month to figure out how to do it, how you want it.
Right.
You know,
Can I ask a question?
Let me,
So if the public wants to read the minutes, where do they go to find the minutes of the previous board?
on the website.
So you take it out the recording or your notes?
Well,
we have a-
it's both, what we have is just, it's a Word document, but starting next month, it'll be on the district board docs website. The agenda, the minutes are built directly off the agenda within that system. The whole platform, here's the agenda, it turns into minutes.
Yeah, but does that reflect what actually happened?
Yeah.
So, yes, and then the requirements of who made the motion, what was the vote? So those things that are required by law are then added as what actually happened. So that'll all be on the website in that board doc system.
I think one thing that might be discussed at the next meeting is if there's, you know, if we want to do a more thorough, make changes to what the meeting minutes say. Sometimes, just as a simple example, a lot of times there's an acronym and we want to make sure those are spelled out or something like that. That could be part of the discussion at the next meeting.
Well, if you have somebody sitting right there on the laptop, taking the minutes, 5 minutes as soon as you say it, right after that, I should be able to have it on my phone. Yeah, email it out, and then the whole meeting is all fresh in my head. I can read it in 5 minutes.
It would be shared down.
So it'll be, and within the systems, some of the things that are draft are visible to the board prior to them being public. And so, yeah, so there's different levels of visibility, of course.
Will Board docs have the previous minutes? Because I noticed our website's missing like half of 18, all of 19, half a 20 or something. Will we have eventually have old minutes on there?
Oh, man, there
Oh,
hasn't been there hasn't been a conversation that we're getting all of those. We're getting those all scanned as PDFs so that there's at least a digital file if something God
And right
forbid
now we
happens
have
to
a-
the building, but I don't think there has been no discussion about going all the way back historically to 1960, whatever.
But I
the
can go
minutes.
in and I can pick up a ring binder and just read them, right?
They're all,
Yeah, okay.
all of those super,
that question
super old
about-
are here.
About finding the minutes right now, they're all in hard copy in ring binders in the office. Is
In the
that
past
right?
couple of years are on the website, yeah.
And I believe it's been many years, since they've been, someone's been paid to take it as an employee.
And, right, yes.
When it was Cheryl Rakowski did it for right up until I left my last year. That we've made some changes and let some people go, but up until then. Okay, anything else that will be on the agenda for the next meeting? Anything else that anyone would like to comment on? So the review of policies, these are policies that will come up and we will make sure that we have the time to discuss those at the next meeting, unless anybody has any objections to that. Is moving forward with that approach okay with everyone? Okay, let's go to public comment.
Oh,
I'm sorry, go, yeah.
just, I'm sorry, I was expecting a little bit of time here. I wanted to make sure that the board recognized that distribution of information is just not that we need to spend a whole lot of time there, but there was conversation stemming from public comment in a previous board meeting about distribution of a printed flyer, which led to this whole conversation. What I said to the board is I'd go back and look at what the existing policy procedure is and found 4060, which is distribution of materials. Now, there was a recommended change in wording, and you'll see that in the markup that the name of that policy. And this is fairly recent. This is just like April 23.
Yeah, I
This
saw the
is here.
article. That was a good article.
So it's a good article. And so the changing and the wording of the policy and then some of the procedures themselves. So that just all stems from that existing question and conversation.
Well, I'd ask if anyone, if people wanted to do that, postpone it till the
Oh, I
next meeting
see.
for the sake of time, but we certainly do not have to.
Oh, wait,
And
I
Bob
see what you
but Bob did put this article and the revision of the policies on, that was posted for us.
Okay.
This one's timely, just because of like,
Because we discussed it last meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Robbie brought it up and it's timely, and as I look about. For me. You guys know I'm big, I'm not making. Changes unless the clear values to the waterfall policies. But I'd like, personally, I would like to see some way to like recognize the importance of parental rights. In how we hand things out. Like find clear ways to get information to parents on what's being handed out to our kids. And I feel like, and I think he said something about this in the conversation I had with him before coming on the board. Especially at early ages, we could be providing information in envelopes for the parents in the first couple of classrooms, rather than giving kids flyers, if that's what we have to do.
I think that's a good idea you've come up with of the sending it to parents rather than.
Well, that would give the school a liability. That's what
right.
we're worried about.
Well,
As far as how parents prefer to receive information, I ran a survey, would have been last year, about the parents' preferred method of getting information. I could pull it back up, but it wasn't even close with by a mile. Parents preferred getting information via email. And then a close second was using the messaging app we have. Hopefully you all have the MASD mobile app. You should. If you don't have that, you got to get it because that's how we push stuff out. We can push emails out now through that as well as texts. So
If that's the case, then instead of put the flyer in an envelope. Do you have to?
oh yeah. Everything goes directly to
I think the worst case scenario is like a parent finding something, in a backpack or finding something and then feeling like, hey, well, what are they pushing on my kids? And some things that go out may be controversial and have to have feelings, but they don't want to be surprised.
Sure. I mean, you can announce it that this is what your policy is.
So do we have a
Did-
few parents that don't have email or don't want to email?
Yes, and Lisa is aware of parents for whom email is not a good tool or so we provide printed material to those families or communicate with them via text. Is more and more, she shared with me, more and more parents are preferring receive information via text, either through the Thrillshare app or from the office phone. But within this, it's interesting you say that about being not printed. Just a comment, you probably noticed this in what I gave you, says, I'm just reading from this, the revisions in 4060 shift the method of distribution from physical delivery of printed information to posting on the district website. We have a better tool because we can put it directly to their device, which means people don't have to go looking to the website. It's right there on their device. Or a link on their device to the website. We can provide it either way, but that's part of the revision about upgrading the way we're providing information.
I personally would like to see something in the policy that's a line about the importance of parental rights. And then if there's anything that you wanna, thinking about that, how that would inform our procedure. Like if you wanna say, we'll ensure that parents get copies of all material that their kids get at certain age, or we'll just deliver materials directly to kids at younger, or directly to parents, sorry, not directly to kids, at younger ages, something along those lines, I think.
So the next meeting is the meeting where we would approve the policy as we amend it. So we need to make sure that, Eric's comments and would get extended into how we would amend the policy as it's written.
And we don't have to, right, like that, we can approve it if we're not ready. If you
No,
don't
it's
like
a
it.
discretionary policy.
So this is a draft, so this is what.
This is the draft recommendation by WASDA. Okay. And what I would like to see, and I don't know how this works, I would like to see a line added around the importance of parental rights. And I would like to see, I would like Bob to look at the procedure and think about if we want that to be important. If there's anything else to put into the procedure on that front. And I guess what I was saying is, we can approve it on the second. We've had ones that we keep pushing to the third or the fourth because as a board, we're not quite happy. Yeah, we're not quite happy with it. But
So I guess the one question would be based on what you're commenting on is, would the board like to give Bob direction to revise the procedure for the next meeting that would include something that addresses the issue you're talking about? Bob, does that make sense to you?
Well, can we put that off? I just got this.
Yes, we can.
It's quite a bit for me to read, it's like right here.
Right.
on the clock.
And so policies, we have a minimum of 2 meetings where it's introduced as a policy and it was that has made changes and has suggested changes, it will come to us. And if Bob has suggested changes, it will come to us.
Right.
And then we can discuss at that meeting, and then we have another meeting of which we can discuss. And if we agree, we can approve, or we can go on to a third meeting or even one part. And so when Bob posts them, if the changes come from WASDA, they're usually in red. Is that right, Bob? If you change them, do you use red as well? No, okay.
Right.
No. And I would never make changes in
Oh,
the
suggested.
policy, but in the,
Okay, you don't make suggested changes to the policy, just the procedures.
The board, yeah, the board, I think the board has to instruct it. Yeah.
a lot of times in the procedure, which is, how we do the policy, I'm almost always the policies are super brief. But then the procedure would be like kind of how it's implemented, and if there's any changes, basically it's like, how would that work in our school? Well, we don't have assistant principals. Where's this gonna be made available? Oh, it's gonna be made available at the school office. We only have the superintendent principal position and the dean of students position. So sometimes we'll say, instead of saying superintendent or designee, sometimes we'll say the dean of students or the principal. So that's the only changes, maybe just like so that it fits at the personnel level, in our school. That's.
So Bob, before we move on, did you want to just give us any words to think about while we go home and review this policy about advertising on district property? Just strictly everything from WASDA, a recommended change from WASDA.
Exactly, and it wasn't even on my radar until I was looking at this policy and legal news brief. And we don't have advertising. But I thought I'd just bring it to the board. If it's something that you decide is worthwhile, this would be a new policy. And when you read this brief from Policy and Legal News, in the end, the author ended up saying, hey, we're probably better safe than sorry. You have something in place when the time comes where someone suggests, hey, they'll put a new sign up and, oh yeah, it's going to have Coca-Cola, it's going to have, right, whatever. So that there be some established guidelines for the future. That was a recommendation, but it'd be a new policy if the board chooses to take it on, that's all.
So let's get into discussion on the new policy for the next meeting.
For the minutes, was any of that tabled, or was just, we had discussion and that's it?
No, we kind of made a decision on whether we were gonna discuss today or postpone discussion, but we ended up discussing, so.
Okay,
They'll
got
all be at the next meeting, they'll be up for discussion again. It could be an action item, but we may take it out of there.
of course.
Does anyone have anything else before we move on to public comment? Okay, let's move on to public comment. Oh my goodness, Joan, I think your hand was up first and then this gentleman.
Okay. Two things. One, Don has left, but I wanted to clarify some of the things that were said about him that were not true. And maybe Robbie can do a better job. He was a board chairman. He inherited a very difficult school financing situation. And it was said that he ran the school almost into the ground, but it wasn't him personally. It was the whole board, and it was to pay the bills. There was a reserve fund that they had already started dipping into, and while he was on the board, they had to continue. Till Angela came along and did what she did, which was really wonderful. But anyway, I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
They were saying that he did, you know, this terrible thing by not managing the finances of people. And that's not,
Thank you, Joe. Yes, sir.
Mine have a question. Learning about the two revenue streams, pretty important. In your opinion, how stable then is PCI? Like, from year to year, is it tenuous, whether that's even gonna have high school, or it's rock solid, when you've got it for 10 years? It appears it's pretty important.
Well, I think we should try to answer it as Eric said, we have a partner. And you're required to have a partner, and that, to me, that's one of our, most important things that we need to keep track of to make sure that PCIA, is viable. Eric? Say something?
Yeah, I think we have a stable situation with our partner, but I'm bringing up a word that was used earlier, it's not something we can place about. We need to make sure our partner district is happy, that they see value in it. There would be questions on if we had to reapply with a new partner, would the state still recognize the innovation? Now that things have changed, things have changed in the state. So I don't see it going away as long as we continue to be a model and a good school, and as long as we maintain that relationship with our partner district. But anything can also happen, and we need to look, have a certain level of preparation.
How many other schools have this model now?
There's
One other school.
one other innovation academy in the state of Washington.
Really?
Would
Well,
you like me to, can I add just a little bit to that?
Did you?
Yes,
do you mind?
That'd be fine.
It's, it was a fair question in the early days of PCIA about whether it was funded by a grant. Do we have to reapply every year? Right? And that's kind of, it's a natural question to ask. And the answer is no. So the program was approved by the state. And every year, unless a condition changes in the eligibility, then we will continue to receive that funding for this program. We just have to be able to run the program. And we have to have a partner district, because one of the requirements is that it's cooperative. But we don't have to reapply. We don't have to worry about whether the money is there next year or not. We just have to make sure we meet requirements of the program.
we don't have to have just one, we can have more. We can get another partner, then that just make our position.
Yes, which is something we've talked about quite a bit.
What's the enrollment at Mount Pleasant? Their student enrollment pretty steady.
It's been growing.
It's modest growth. Almost all of their growth is from out of district. It's almost all from Washougal. And almost all of their high school students, in fact, all of their students go to Washougal for high school. So
Some of the benefits they get.
yeah, their 7th and 8th graders have been being able to take high school math courses with this combination of remote and in person.
Because honestly, we receive most of the financial benefit of this cooperative because everything happens here. So it's important to us that there is benefit to Mount Pleasant to stay on.
Oh, yeah.
And their students are guaranteed, if they want to attend here, they're guaranteed enrollment here, even if we're full, because they're part of the cooperative. And there's other, in theory, they could take remote classes for some high school students or other types of benefits, but working on that, maintaining that relationship, making sure they continue to see benefit. There's been some technological benefits as well.
Well, they do that on devices from the school.
So we actually generate for the section eight here, school not plugging, we actually create laptops for them.
Right.
So they are using school, which is great, that's our benefit is using our equipment to help them out, so that's not.
Yeah, there's been some questions about like, well, why are our funds going to like fund the stuff? It's a worthwhile investment. When you look at that budget, it's a very worthwhile investment.
Yes,
Yeah, another question.
all right.
I was just wondering if the 1962 graduation pictures were.
And all the rest.
Are they
Yes,
down the same
yes.
hallway or?
No, they're not.
They're,
up.
they're not up
They've been
yet.
Getting framed for I don't know how many years now.
And
I'm
was
tired of
in-
asking.
I was in 1963 graduating class.
I was in 76.
So reframing those, Bob, is that something a volunteer could do?
I don't, it's, there has been an employee who's been working on that, and, there has been, I think, some volunteer help. I'll reach back out and I'll request, I'll request an update on the timeline. They're not going up until after, not going up until after Tim paints the wall though.
Pictures.
I get to see all my siblings up on the wall every day if they're up there.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they look much younger in those.
I don't know if my sister would say the same thing, but.
Okay, do we have any others? Yes, ma'am, right back there.
Well, I would say that as far away out of the history person, the getting rid of our cameras, put in the middle, would make it a lot more accessible. Not only would I be able to see like facial expressions,
Right.
and it all on the audio quality is much, much better. And, this is just like a technological note. We have started using it at my work, a note-taking tool that basically does summary of the minutes for you, and you can go through and edit it before you publish it to make sure there's not inaccuracies on one stuff. So I would highly recommend that.
Yeah.
And then a more general comment. I just want to say, like, you know, the gorge is like a microcosm of America in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of divides. And this kind of work that we're doing is really important for small d democracy and turning citizen into a verb that we actually know and practice. So thank you to the board. And if you want to look at other ways to turn citizen into a verb, there's a great podcast called How to Citizen.
It's called what?
Look at that. How to Citizen.
How to citizen, okay.
Yeah. And I appreciate the diligence.
Thank you very much. Hi.
Hi, I just would like to draw some associations between your legislative report and what Katie Lipke said at the forum. I got all the hoopla started. And it ties in what Robbie said a little bit, but some of us have been anticipating for the last 3 years at least what kinds of curriculum mandates and directives would be coming down from the feds and from the states. And the point Katie was making was that if what the state wants us to teach our kids or not teach our kids is not meaningful to the parents and the community, then we don't have to, you know, lie down like a doormat and take it. We can say no. And that was her point about if they hold our funding over our heads, that's extortion. That's a form of extortion. And we can't allow that. Now, tying back into your legislative report, you know, this DEI stuff, whether you like it or not, I happen to not. But we saw on the pie charts here that 1/3 of our kids are not meeting grade level in reading. 2/3 are not meeting grade level in math.
That's not necessarily not meeting grade level. They're not improving like we are supposed to. That was not grade level, right? That was grade level? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So my point is that and teachers are already overloaded with the stuff that they're required to teach. New stuff comes all the time. We're gonna have to say no and push back on some of that until we have a much higher percentage of our kids up to grade level in the basics. And I think that was Katie's point that night, that we need to focus on the basics.
Yeah.
And say no to this other stuff coming down the pipe that just doesn't prepare our kids for the world at large.
Thank you. And the reason I brought the legislation up and people can take it home and read it is because I anticipate a significant amount of public comment when we are faced with that policy.
Yeah.
And that will be, I don't know when.
Now, another way that the school loses
Thank
money is if the numbers of students go down. And if parents get angry enough about, the curriculum, they'll pull their kids. So that could also threaten our bottom line. We don't want this school is a gem in this community. It is golden. Nobody wants to see it close, but neither are we going to sacrifice our kids' education.
Bob, did you want to say something? Did you want to make a public comment or a superintendent comment? No, okay.
Oh, other than you might have noticed. You were talking about, them learning stuff that's gonna be helpful in the future. And finally, like financial education, learning about finances.
Yeah.
Is now finally something that needs to be included in schools, and there's like at different levels, so finally. It's a long time coming, but so.
Just a couple things. One, regarding the minutes. It's really hard if you don't go to a meeting to really know what went on. Yes, and that's, I think, a big thing. There's not enough there to understand what went on. And then I wanted to bring up too, because I didn't get information to Greta for the bulletin. I just want to let you know that I met an author, local author over in Hood River at one of the Hood River bazaars. She and her mom were selling their books. And so I invited her here. She's 19 years old. So that was awesome. For the K-7th grade, she was not interested in going back to high school yet. So she and her mom came up and talked with K through 7th grade. And she was fabulous. And Crystal said she was fantastic. She and her mom. And then, so PTO paid for her visit, which was very minimal because it was our first time in the school. And then Crystal has entered their books into our library system too. So it was awesome.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, those kinds of reports, I really appreciate those because they're kinds of things we don't get. Maybe, at some point when we finish the budget, we can have an occasional report by a teacher or staff member of special things that are going on, right? We don't know about. Thank you. Yeah, Greta.
Along those lines, I'll just give you an update. We had PTO plant sale, pancake breakfast, yes, Saturday. And it was just wonderful. It was so lovely. I just felt like so much kindness, so much love, and just beautiful. The kids were happy to be here, sunshine, playground, the style, the art teacher had art out on the playground. And the cafeteria, this little cafe. It was the sweetest thing. And that's fundraising. We've so far, the plans are still for sale, but through conference. So far, we've brought in about 2,300. Yeah. Yep. And so that'll help us with end of year teachers. That'll help with teacher appreciation week, that'll help us fund a lot of things like that. And our massive fundraiser, Music in Your Way, is coming May 11th. And so far, this year with funds we earned last year, we've got, 3 sets of risers. We're at 77.50, I think it was last year. And 3 sets of risers, a bunch of instruments, like the author, what else have we gotten?
We did. Well, we did Pi Day, we did Valentine's Day, PTO supports Valentine's Day treats. More stuff for like all the normal PTO stuff, craft day.
Yeah, yeah. So Music in My Money is just strictly for music and art. So we're looking at, we've already started going up fundraising. I had put the mail today. We've got $300 in checks that are already showing up. People are excited and happy to support us.
That's awesome.
Thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, thank you.
Creative.
But I think there's only 2 risers.
Third one's coming.
Oh, there's one more
I'll
coming?
do this week.
Oh.
The same.
All right, anything else? Anything good for the order from the public? Now, the next thing on the agenda is we do need to go into an executive session. When we come out of executive session, we will come back into a regular section and we will look at approving the things that are under the action items on the agenda. If you're interested, you're welcome to come back. How long do you think will be an executive session?
Maybe 15 minutes.
So we estimate we'll be in executive session for 15 minutes. Thank you all very, very much.
So start time.
Thank you all.
Can I just ask a question? Can we have a little break?
Yeah,
We're gonna
Ask-
have a
ask her.
5-minute potty break.
we're taking a recess.
Light breaks.
Going into recess, 8:37.
So Bob, we'll come back and start at 8:42 or 8:41 or so for our executive session. Oh.
Yep.
All the way down to the
Got it.
restroom as well. Is there a wire on that side?
You know what? I
Nope, nope,
got a
we're
longer
okay.
cable, so you know,
Yeah.
it's safe to pass.
Thank you.
Oh, lean forward, Bill.
Lean forward.
There we go. Hey, no hiding from the camera.
So for, after this meeting, are we gonna put like a little table and stuff out there and that's it?
Regular meeting resumed, 8:57. All right. This is the exciting part. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay,
Let's,
we're going to go ahead. The next thing on our agenda are our action items, and the first action item is approval of the overnight field trip for the PCIA oceanography class. Do I hear a motion?
I will make that motion. I think it's a great thing.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the overnight field trip for the oceanography class. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor say yay.
Yay.
Anyone opposed? All right. The next item on is the calendar for 23-24. And we went over that calendar, and the big change is that school year isn't extended, but we do all the snow days, we have to have school. Is that basically it?
not all of them. That
It's been adjusted because of that.
been adjusted.
All of the only change or all of the changes are snow days that are.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion to approve the 23-24 calendar version? It's actually version 3, I believe that's what. the
Yes.
3 means.
Yes.
And this is the one that 60% of the teachers wanted.
Almost all of them.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to approve the 23-24 calendar. All in favor, is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. The next one is the 24-25 calendar. I don't think there's a specific comments to point out. We went over it and Bob presented it. Is there a motion to approve that calendar? Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any discussion or questions or anything anyone wants to add? Okay. In that case, everyone in favor of the 24-25 calendar as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, okay. Now we have supplemental contracts, and I have a folder here with these contracts. On,
And a description of what they are.
so we haven't seen these, so we'll probably pass around if anyone wants to look at them. What I'm going to pass around are supplemental contracts that have additional responsibilities, the PCIA robotics, the Knowledge Bowl, the Science Club, the ASB advisor, and the library manager. And then also additional services, which is the teacher mid-year and end of school year in service days. Pardon?
Can I get a copy?
We only have the one, it's gonna go down the table. And then, the Nellie School Spring After School Program do additional services. We haven't had an opportunity to read these, so they will be going by. Why don't I send?
They're the same format as the contracts that the board approved for the 5 days. Supplemental contracts for the 5 prep days at the beginning of the school year. There were 2 other teacher in service days.
And if I
That-
remember. Oh, I'm
Yep,
sorry.
and that was, as this says, in January, and there's one at the end of the day. So they're budgeted. They're already approved. This is just that at the time, going back to when those initial 5 contracts, supplemental contracts were approved by the board, the rest of the calendar hadn't been worked out. We were still in the midst of negotiations. So how many additional days were going to be funded? And we were still negotiating that. And so now that that's settled, the 2 other supplemental days we need these contracts so that they can be paid. And so that's what that's about. The additional responsibilities on the extracurricular opportunities, Kayleen has PCA robotics happened without a contract. Knowledge Bowl season, as you saw, has happened without a contract.
Because the union
It's
contract
not
wasn't
that
in
they-
place?
It's not that they couldn't, some chose not to
Okay.
without a
without the
contract,
Contract being.
and some continued. Now, Crystal Durham has continued to manage our library, bring our library into the 21st century. She has facilitated all of the upgrading of the materials, onboarding all of the books into the system, all of that without contract, as she has in previous years. Kayleen Herman has continued to serve as ASB advisor all year long without a contract. And so,
And we as a board assured the people who did that, that we were,
Mhm.
that we would make it right for them. But we understood
So-
if somebody
Mhm.
chose not to because they were still waiting on negotiations to finish.
now on the contract side, the contracts have been reviewed by ESD 112 HR and payroll to make sure that they're accurate and appropriate. So they're
I'm really-
vetted.
Really happy
reviewed.
to see that these things are, especially the ones that we've added the jobs and stuff, because we received a letter from one of the students about wanting to go ahead with clubs, right?
Right.
And yeah, I think some have continued and some have not until this point. Now, still, I mean, yeah. So in that. Just don't lose any of them. I don't have.
So there are
Not
three
yet.
supplemental contracts here, or are there more
There's
put
more.
together?
They're all, well, there has to, well, they're all the teachers.
Each of the teachers get the 2 days worth of supplemental, whatever they get.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I am not going to list them all as I present them for us or consideration, because it's too many to list.
Well, yeah, which is why typically something like this is in the consent agenda. Typically, it's just in like approval of supplemental contracts. Boom. It's just like
Yeah.
it just requires board approval. Doesn't require board review.
When you say typically, you're saying at most schools.
Right, good point. We are not most schools. All right, here we go. We're in the home stretch. We're almost there.
I gotta go to work after this, so I don't know.
You don't have to, well,
No, I work part-time in the hospital every time.
Oh, okay, so we have before us supplemental contracts that will add the responsibilities of PCIA robotics, Knowledge Bowl, Science Club, ASB advisor, library manager, and additional services of teacher mid-year and end of school year and service days, and MAS spring after-school program. I would entertain a motion to approve these.
Absolutely.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to approve the supplemental contracts covering the responsibilities of service I mentioned. Is there any further discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the supplemental contracts are approved.
okay. Say the words and bang the gavel.
This is it?
You gotta say a time.
Adjourned.
You're gonna say meeting adjourned and give me a time.
The time is 9:07. The meeting is adjourned, and I believe we don't have anything afterwards.